I'm from Wetumpka, and I'm a fluent speaker. I read and write the language. Sometimes I get to teach it. I went to school for a short while there at the local school, and then later on, I was sent to boarding school. I remember the first day I went to school, the very first day. I got off the bus and I was walking to the building, and all these little other kids, they knew where to go. I didn't. So I walked slowly to the big door and walked in because it was open, and there's a teacher standing a little ways, and she was motioning to me to come. And I could hear all these children speaking, but I didn't know what they were saying.
My mother sent me off to Eufaula boarding school when I was about little, before I was 6, about 5. It was a school for girls. They were about like me, couldn't talk English hardly. They cut our braids off and gave us bangs, and we wore little overalls.
I grew up in Hanna, a very small town. I don't know if y'all ever seen the place, but it's a post office, a school, and one grocery store when I was growing up. I went to school at Hanna High, graduated out of there, and it was a very small school. Everybody knew each other. There was a lot of Indian students, so yeah, we would speak the language. It was always, you know, in the hallways we would speak. I was raised traditional. I mean, you know, and in my family, a woman was to do the housework, the cooking. A man was not supposed to. So my mom taught me how to cook, clean, wash clothes, and basically do it all. And I still do that now.
The bigness of everything, you know, big building and anything, even like running water, and I'd hear that water gurgling down that sink. I think it might pull me in there.
When I heard the strange language, it was very, very unusual because I had never been around non-Indians. I'm 6 years old and I enter school and I hear this, and it was the most strangest feeling ever. Actually, I was scared. My knees were shaking and my hands, my palms were just sweaty. They looked down on the full blood because, well, we couldn't speak, we couldn't read or write, you know. And they called us, they said we were ignorant. And I used to think the word ignorant was a real bad word, you know. But I remember that boarding school matron saying that to us. Y'all are ignorant, you know. I'm thinking, gosh, that must be a real bad word, you know, for them to call us that, you know.
We had some matrons were kind of more disciplinarians than the others, and they're the ones that, well, they told us one thing, said, don't be speaking Creek, because you're here to learn English. If we were caught doing anything we weren't supposed to, of course you get a spanking for it. But there's a lot of us girls didn't know how to really talk English.
If we were caught speaking our own language, we were severely punished. They washed my mouth out with soap because I was speaking my language. So I was scared to death to even open my mouth. The matron there, she was heavy set. She was Chickasaw, she said, but she looked like Stehetki to me. But she was really mean to the kids. I remember the matron reached over and just slapped the little girl on the back. But I heard that sound and I looked, turned around, and the little girl had a handprint of that woman on her back. And the little girl just cried. And I'm thinking, surely somebody ought to be helping us. You know, they can't treat kids like this.
Well, the summer I was out of school, called myself getting married. And the man I married was supposed to go to the Korean War. And so he said he wanted his wife to be waiting on him when he got back. He didn't even pass the examination after I married him. So I was stuck with him. No.
My grandma always told me that one day that the language would be lost. And she always told me there'll be another Trail of Tears. You know, they spoke in parables, the elders spoke in parables a lot. And I thought maybe she didn't mean like Trail of Tears, but maybe we was gonna be on a trail of maybe losing the language.
I was about, I guess, 22 years old, I guess. And I worked at this one place in Eufaula. It was called OK Cafe. And I didn't know anything about cooking where you get paid. And that owner said, well, I'll teach you. So I went, and after 2 weeks, she let me be on my own as a cook. Fountainhead got built in '65 when that was completed. So from 1965 to '85, I was at Fountainhead.
After high school, I went to a business school and I took English. And then I worked for a while, but I didn't think I was up to par with the Stihedki people I was working. I didn't know enough English. And so I would read books and books and books. And what word I didn't understand, I would write it down and look it up. And later on, I was asked to teach a language in Holdenville. And you know, the funny thing is, after I learned all this Stihedki language, I went home and one day we were gathered, my sisters and brothers, and I was speaking. And my little sister comes up to me and says, why don't you speak English? I'm thinking, what? She says, you're using words that I have no idea what you're saying. And I look at my other sister and goes, am I speaking a foreign language? She said, no, you're just using words she's not used to. I said, oh. Well, and that proved to me that I was learning, you know. My position today, I'm working for the Muskogee Creek Nation. I work in the Cultural Preservation Office in a department. I am the archivist and the records technician. I can read and write the language. I find documents that are written in language. I can read them. They say I am very useful in our department because I can read and write language.
So Hokolan, Hangit, Tijarabonagabonayat, so Chihan Hoyan Hadam. Growing up, it was all the way around me. I was immersed. My uncles, my whole family spoke. So we didn't have English spoken very much. So it's like an immersion, everyday living.
My language never left me because my mother didn't know English. She always spoke Creek to me. I'm glad to this day, but even now, there's not many people I can just talk to in Creek.
When we went home and we were talking to my grandmother, my mother's mother, and we were speaking English to her, she turned her back to us. We got real quiet. Then she turned around and spoke in the language, in the Muskogee language, and she says to us, she said, you speak your language. And she says to us in the language that you've learned, she said, you don't need it here, not in the home. She said, don't speak it in the home. She said, the Creator made you who you are and gave you a language, you speak it. The Seminole and the Muskogee Creek are the same. They have the same language. So when a Seminole dies and he's a speaker, there goes the I hear that others are passing on that know the language.
I went to a council meeting and I was going to speak. And I was told to speak in the language, and I did. And I went through I probably went 20 minutes speaking in the language, and I asked if there was anybody that understood what I said. 2 people raised their hands. That's when I knew the language was in trouble. We just need to get awareness that, that people need to learn this language. It's a beautiful language.
We need to keep teaching the children, because without the language, we wouldn't be a people. We wouldn't be a Muskogee Creek Nation people.
I wish we could have kept it like it was. I hope that it can be brought back, but it had to be in the homes every day and night. And if you don't use it, it's going to be gone. I hope maybe in the songs, maybe they can keep the songs.
I'm hoping that in the future that the language program would come up with something like an immersion school or something, because with every elder that's a fluent speaker that dies, we just lose more and more. And I was told that we only have 500 speakers left. When I was growing up, everybody knew the language. And I always thought the language would always be there. The Citizenship Board should encourage every member to learn the language.
I never thought we would be in this position. My grandma used to tell me one day there would be. Never thought it'd happen, but I'm seeing it. And she told me, she said, you may not see it, but your kids or your grandkids may see it, that the language will disappear one day. I didn't think I'd see it in my lifetime. And it's very, very hurtful. And every time we bury a speaker, the language is buried with them.
I enjoy talking Creek to them. It's a happy language. You can, say things, and it's just different than saying it in English. It's happy.
I'm very passionate about the language because it is who I am. And I want my kids, my grandkids and kids to know that I have this passion. We need people to step up and even teach in the home. Teach their grandkids that does know how to speak. Teach their kids. I teach my grandkids, I speak to them. We just need to get awareness that, that people need to learn this language. It's a beautiful language.
If I went back in time and saw myself going to that school, I would tell her to be brave, that things never stay the same. My grandmother used to tell me that. She said, things happen today, they won't be like that 10 years from now. Things change.
In my lifetime, I'd see, oh my gosh, I'd love to hear somebody, a young child, a teenager, that I can speak to. Because I'm speaking to my grandkids, I have no clue who they're going to speak to. But I want them, and I'm hoping that they can speak to each other and just carry on the language.